Welcome to the podcast, Selena. I am so excited for this moment to have you on with me. So thank you for being here.
Aw, thank you. I can't wait to dive in.
I know it's so fun because your name has come across in my inbox for many years. Just
Aw,
when I was with Amy, you would send over podcast guests and things like that. But because I was kind of behind the scenes, we never got a great chance to connect. So to be
yeah.
here now and get to talk to you and have this conversation, it's going to be really fun.
Mm.
Yay. So congrats on your new book. I am so excited to dive into it. But before we get there, I want to actually know a little bit more about your story, your journey, because it's been a really beautiful unfolding. So if you could
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started in this world of entrepreneurship because when I was in my late 20s, I had a quarter life crisis. I found myself clinically depressed, having trouble getting
Mm,
out of bed, having trouble eating. And things got so bad that my mom flew from Vancouver, Canada to New York to be by my side. And she would, accompany me on the subway to the nonprofit office I was working at. And I remember saying to a friend, I can't live my life this way. I have to find a way to feel better. And that's when she introduced me to this female life coach, and my whole world
mm,
opened up. I started going to these women's circles and getting exposed to these incredible experts and authors. And that's when I realized that when people are struggling and suffering, they
mm.
don't just need more information, they're really looking for inspiration.
Oh,
And I feel like there is nothing more inspiring than a person, a role model who embodies a message of possibility and hope, whether it's
mm.
you can start your own business and live your dream, or you can heal your health, or, it's time to leave that toxic relationship, whatever it is. I feel like the fastest way to transform is to see someone who was in your shoes and now on the other side.
I think
So
that's so amazing.
yeah, no. So I just felt very inspired to help those kinds of people, really help them
Mm,
elevate. And at the time, I felt that media was the number one way for them to get their message out there, to get their message, in front of even millions of people at one time. And so I created a program called Impacting Millions. I ran that for several years, and yeah, we helped thousands of entrepreneurs. And then since then, I've focused more on my rich relationships message. And so rich relationships is all about, helping people unlock those relationships that take their life and business to the next level.
mm,
Media was a type of rich relationship. And now I'm kind of broadening the scope because, there's all kinds of relationships that, are so meaningful, from the relationship with a mentor, confidant, a gatekeeper, a super connector, your peers, promoters. So yeah, it's such an exciting time to be birthing this book and getting this message out into the world in a bigger way.
Oh my gosh. That it's such a beautiful journey. And I would actually love to know. We're going to talk a lot more about the bits and the pieces and all of that. But where did this rich relationships message originate? Like, where did it come to be?
Yeah, I think it was just really clear to me that it was the fastest way to get from where you are to where you want to be. I just felt that, like, a lot of people overcomplicate things. But when it comes to our biggest problems and our biggest dreams, it's really who, not how,
Mm.
right? So it's about someone opening the door, someone guiding you, someone supporting you. And so it's a totally different way to look at achieving our goals and dreams in life.
I think that's so important. And I feel like especially what we've been through with just coming, 2020, we're 5 years past that now. People are craving these really rich relationships. And also just, we're just online so much. We're working from home. So having these and prioritizing these is such an important message for all of us to hear. But I would love to know, how do you feel like we can prioritize these rich relationships?
Yeah, no, I love that you asked that question because that's a big theme in my book,
Mm,
energy management and intentionality.
yeah.
Because, Kylie, when we think about our lives, like over the course of the decades that we've been living, there's so many people we know. If we just look at social media alone, we probably have multiple thousands of connections across all the different platforms. And so it's like, well, how do I prioritize these rich relationships? Where do I even begin? And so I'll share my number one favorite framework in the book, which is the 6 circles of connection. And so the reality is everyone is created equal as a human. Everyone is important and deserves kindness, respect, and care. But when it comes to your rich relationships, the reality is that some relationships are richer than others, right? We feel this. There are certain people that we know they care about us more. They show up. There's that abundant win-win energy. We
Mhm.
feel relaxed and at ease and safe with them, right? These are all positive qualities that characterize a rich relationship. So if we think about 6 different circles, we'll want to start with circle one. This is going to be our innermost circle. And as I'm going
Mhm.
through it, Kylie, I want you and the listeners to think about who falls into each of these circles. Okay,
Love
so
that.
circle one, innermost, these are people that are essentially doing life with you. These are
Mm.
your closest relationships where there is that transparency, there is that safety. They see your highs, they see your lows. They're that sanctuary, and they're also that trampoline. So this might be your significant other. This could be your very best friend in the whole wide world. This might be a confidant, like a life coach or a therapist that you've been working with consistently over many, many years, and they're on the pulse. So if you reach out to a circle one and say, like, hey, what's happening in Kylie's life? Like, they're going to have details,
Mm.
they know what's going on. So that's kind of how you characterize a circle one.
Okay.
And there's typically 1 to 3, maybe a few more in circle one. Sometimes there's zero if, someone is in a place where they're not actually letting people in.
Mm.
And then there's circle two. So these are your treasured connections. So these are people who are also very close to you. And these are people where it feels like soul family. They make you a priority. You know that you can count on them. This could be team members, right? Team members may or may not be like the circle one, like most intimate relationship, but there's
Mm.
still very close connections and treasured relationships in your life. And this can be other dear friends of yours that are really that matter to you, but are maybe not, conversing with you on the daily or weekly. And then it could be other colleagues and collaborators and partners. So that would be your circle two.
Mm.
That's usually a dozen or maybe more than a dozen. Could be a couple dozen. And then we've got circle three. So this is your active network. And so this is where many of your rich relationships lie. And so these are people who basically you would feel comfortable inviting them to the party, bringing them into your home if they had to crash for a night at your place, sharing confidential information, knowing that they're trustworthy and people of, great character. So one of the ways to kind of see, is this a circle three or would this be potentially a circle four? So a circle three, there's the 3 R's. So you highly respect them. Okay. Number two, you feel comfortable recommending them to others and making introductions, knowing that, they've got great personal character, and they're great at what they do. And then the third is that they are responsive. So if there's someone that you reach out to and they never get back to you, they always drop the ball. It's just like so much effort and energy.
Mm.
They can still be a part of your network, but they're not circle three. They're not the active contacts. So that's circle three. And then there's circle four. And so these are called your distant connections. These are people that are at arm's length a little bit. And there's a couple reasons. One might be you literally just met them. So in your first conversation, as much as, you feel like you're vibing, they're still a stranger on some level. And there's so much to discover about them, right? So they're more in
Mm.
that acquaintance category. It could be someone that you've known for years, but for whatever reason, a little bit of distance is healthy. They're not going to be in the inner circles. Maybe there's someone that always drops the ball. Maybe there's someone that is well meaning, but there is some questionable character traits. Maybe there's someone that's always down in the dumps and negative, and you sometimes you don't feel good around them, but you do care about them and you want the best for them, right? They might be in circle four for that reason. Or another reason might be that your circle one, twos, and threes are full to the max.
Mm.
And you're just in a place in your life where you don't have the energetic bandwidth to really be present and give to someone. And so they maintain more of that acquaintance type relationship. So that's four. And four is still important because that's what many people call weak ties or distant ties. And there's a lot of value in still maintaining relationships with people that you can't be actively in touch with all the time. Now, the next circle is circle five. So this is disconnected.
Mm.
So these are people who perhaps have betrayed you at some point. Relationships are not healthy. And so you're choosing not to engage. Maybe you've tried to fix a relationship, and every time you try to have a conversation, there's more confusion and drama. And so, someone's in a circle five and there's maybe a small intimate room, a couple people over for an intimate brunch. You wouldn't want to be at that room, at that table, if someone was your circle five. And then last but not least, there's circle six. And so circle six are people that are unknown. So, you might know of each other, but you have not had that two-way conversation. So I share these six circles because I remember someone once saying, maintaining a friendship not rooted in your truth keeps
Mm.
you out of integrity. And by extension, maintaining any relationship not rooted in your truth keeps you out of integrity. But then what do you do if you have history with someone, or it's not appropriate to just kind of, banish them from your network? Well, you can just move them into a different circle. Maybe they were your circle two, but you realize that this relationship, there's complications with it and you still want to be there, but you're going to energetically put them in circle four. So you don't tell other people what circles they're in, although my best friend does know she's in circle one, but it's more that it's a way to manage your energy and time, and understanding that certain people are going to get more proximity to you,
Mm.
certain people you're going to trust more, and certain people you're going to prioritize more when you think about the multiple thousands of people that you know.
Thank you for breaking those down. I think what's so refreshing about what you've said is we know so many people, and to really see them in these different almost buckets or circles, it just helps to kind of solidify where to pour our energy. And that's something that you've mentioned a couple times now is this energy management, focusing on our energy. How does knowing our circles help to manage our energy to make sure that we are pouring into what's most important?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that sometimes we can forget who's in our network. Like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that person. I haven't caught up with them, and so forth, right? Or sometimes we're so busy with things in our business that are related to generating revenue, but we forget the people that truly matter most to us, who are really there for us. And it's also very nourishing for us to maintain those connections. So I do think it's a good idea for people to write this down. And I recommend that everyone have a top 40 list. And so with your connections, you can't manage multiple thousands or multiple hundreds at once, in a sustainable way. Maybe if you've got a launch or something, and, there might be special occasions where you're looking at like hundreds of people, but in general, that's too much for our minds.
Yeah.
But it's also not right to just fixate on three people, being like, I
Mhm.
need to make this person my friend. I need this person to say yes to, XYZ requests. But just like how, on the Billboard charts, there's a top 40 list for music. You can have your top 40 list of meaningful relationships that you really want to be cultivating. So,
Mm.
what I like to do is when you think about your 40 list, you can split it in half. So, the first 20, these are going to be some of your strongest relationships. You want to put circle one and circle two, they always show up for you. And there's also going to be some circle three people that are just high priority, and you put them in there, right? But then here's the thing, when you think about really having a network that's relevant for where you're going with your goals and dreams and with your own evolution, you can't only focus on the people that you know and just keep it at that. You need
Mm.
to expand your network. You need to be meeting new people, and you also need to be cultivating relationships with people that maybe you've lost touch with, but you feel
Mhm.
like there's magic, there's synergy, and there's shared values. So the first 20 will be one, two, and three. Now, the next 20, you could also have some threes in there that are maybe kind of borderline three to four, and then other fours as well in there. And then there could be some sixes. Now, we're not putting five because five are people that you prefer not to communicate with,
Right.
but sixes would be new people. So, like, let's say, Kylie, if someone was like, I've got this big dream of writing a best selling book, but I don't have any friends that are authors. I don't even know how to get started. So, if someone was in, that place and they know that that's their goal and dream, they may ask their friends, who do you know that has written a book? Who is a good person to hire for book coaching? So do you see how based on that goal, you're going to be adding new people in your network that you don't have? So you want to have a mix. Now, it doesn't have to be 2020. It could be like 30-10, but you absolutely need to, prioritize those existing people that show up for you, that you care about, where there's that win-win energy. And you also have to have your mind on, I want to bring new people into my world and
Mm.
pour into them as well.
I think that's so beautiful. And it kind of leads perfect to the next thing I've been excited to talk to you about. And that is you talk about being an introvert, and I'm
Yeah.
like a good mix of the both, because I'll
Ah,
I'll get done with maybe a podcast interview. And even if it was beautiful, I'm like, okay, I need a little like, time by myself to regenerate and all this. But
100%. Yeah.
I would love
Oh,
to know, how do you manage all of this as an introvert? And I also think about podcasters who are introverts and conduct, interviews with people they might not know. How do we manage that? And how do we really thrive in that space?
yeah, absolutely. So it's all about prioritization, intentionality, which also comes down to knowing yourself. So as an introvert, we just don't have the same amount of energy as other people. And I found that sometimes I would feel like, oh, I should be going to this event. I should be more social. But in places where I
Mhm.
didn't feel very comfortable, I would just kind of shrivel up and I would be that like wallflower. And even in places where I am comfortable, I do tend to be the wallflower in the corner talking to one person versus the person in the center of the room commanding the attention, grabbing the microphone, sharing the jokes. Like that's not who I am. But I did find that in certain environments where I felt really comfortable, where there was so much alignment, it was
Mhm.
really easy for me to open up. And so there are some people, I would say introvert or extroverts for sure, are more comfortable in more settings. They can go into a room and not know anyone and feel comfortable. They're able typically to connect with people with very diverse interests. And not always, but often there is a tendency for introverts to have a more select group of interests and
Yeah.
also be the kind of person that wants to go deeper versus superficial. But you want to be intentional about who you go deeper with. And so I think that if you're an introvert, I would say give yourself permission. You don't have to go to all the events. You don't have to show up in all the places, but really tune in to what feels exciting and energizing for you.
Mm.
It might just be a particular person and you're like, I really like this person and we're going to go to this event together. Or, maybe it's creating your own events because you're really intentional about who you
Mhm.
want to surround yourself with. So when I was in New York early in my career, I would organize these little champagne brunches. We would go to the Crosby Street Hotel and they had, lovely afternoon tea and champagne. And so I did it with a girlfriend of mine and we each brought three people. And so that's kind of an easy lift because I bring three people, she brings three, and then we've got like a nice table of eight, right? Or
Mhm.
if we each brought two people, we've got like an intimate table of six, but we're able to have those meaningful conversations. And in my book, the very first sentence in the book is one rich relationship is more valuable than a
Mm.
hundred casual connections, right? People that care about you, have got your back, that you can rely on matter more. So for everyone, but definitely for introverts, I would say don't be intimidated by all the people that you think you need to know. Really
Mm.
focus on quality over quantity and give yourself permission to say no to things and be intentional about the rooms and places that you choose to be a part of.
Okay, when you were saying, introverts definitely want to, they might be in the corner having a one-on-one with somebody, going deeper into the conversation. I'm like, hi, that's so me. I just always am like, love to have just deep conversations with one person. So I very much understand that, and just relate to that. So I would love to know, how can podcasters use some of these things that we're talking about to, like, how can they pour into these rich relationships by using their podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, when it comes to rich relationships, when you think about, well, who do others want to connect with?
Mhm.
There's a couple of core characteristics. So one is we all gravitate towards people who are, connected to our goals and dreams because there is like that alignment. But related to that, not just connected to our goals and dreams, but they also want to see us win, that we feel like they care about us and that they have a generous spirit. They're really, when I was doing, a lot of interviews with very high level entrepreneurs about this topic of rich relationships, there were two characteristics that showed up again and again, and ones I didn't automatically maybe think of. Like I knew,
Mhm.
okay, yes, we want to be around other maybe ambitious and driven people. We want to be around other kind people. That was kind of like, what I would have expected, but there are two other things. So one is that people said they really want to be around people that are real. They're
Mhm.
tired of being in rooms and in places where it feels like someone is putting on a show,
Mhm.
or where people, and understandably, I mean, sometimes, yes, it does take time for people to deserve to maybe know some of the intimate details of, the other person's life. But when someone is really open and real, it creates that intimacy and depth in a
Mhm.
relationship. And the second thing is people wanted to be around other people that were generous, people that were thoughtful, people that were giving, because a lot of us are naturally very giving, but then sometimes we find ourselves in relationships where they're one sided, where someone is very transactional. And then therefore we have our guard
Mhm.
up because we can't be our fully generous self. And so, yeah, generosity and realness is really
Mhm.
what people are craving. And so I would say for podcasters, I mean, there's so many opportunities. There is something to be said about the time that you're spending when you're recording that podcast
Mhm.
interview with someone. I would say, take the time to think about your own top 40 list. So as a podcaster, what are
Mhm.
your goals and dreams, and write those down, and not just, business, but also personal and
Mhm.
lifestyle and impact and your own visibility. So in the book, I have a whole section on 7 different types of goals. And I want people to get really creative and just put that all out there. Now, after you've kind of brain dumped like the things that matter most to you, your goals and dreams, then I want you to pick your top 3. And then once you have your top 3, I want you to think about who are people that are connected to those goals and dreams, who are people that you admire and respect, because there needs
Mhm.
to be shared values. And then also think about who has that abundant win-win energy. Like when you think about them,
Mhm.
there's like this expansiveness,
Mhm.
there's possibilities, there's ways to collaborate, support, or introduce people to them, or share ideas, right? So you want to create your top 40 list. And then I think you want to be, really intentional. I mean, I imagine, many podcasters do this. It's not just waiting to see who reaches out to you, but creating opportunities and initiating and reaching out to people who are really, would be great for your show. And then also asking those people that you've had on your show, is there anyone that you would recommend? I'm
Mhm.
looking for these types of guests, these kinds of people, or even sharing what your goals and dreams are, and saying, I'm looking to connect with more people that are, aligned with this, that could be great for me to know. As a podcaster, you're kind of a celebrity, and people want to support you. They want to
Mhm.
introduce others to you, and they also want to feel seen by you. I feel like, obviously podcasters are so busy. There's so many interviews to record, and there's only so much time to prepare for each interview. But even doing just a little bit of prep goes a very long way for someone. And of course, like whatever you can do to, amplify the person, and hopefully they too are inspired to amplify the episode as well. So those are just some things to kind of get you going. But, it's such an intimate thing having a
Mhm.
conversation with someone and then it being shared with hundreds, thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of people. And so people are always, even if it's just like the slightest, like a little bit nervous. And so whatever you can do to put people at ease and make
Mhm.
them feel celebrated, is really going to, make them feel like, wow, this is such a special relationship I have. And this is such an amazing person.
Oh, I love all of that. And when you were talking about this, it brought me back to what you were talking about before, when you would have these kind of curated champagne brunches with this curated community. And I do feel like that is having a podcast is kind of a neat opportunity to create a little bit of like that curated community of people who you feel really comfortable with, where you can, relate to. So I love everything that you said there and shared. You did say one thing that I would love to dive into a little bit more. And you mentioned transactional relationships. Where does that play in here? And what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So in business, there has to be transactions. It's a good thing, right? We hire people. There's kind of like clear cut terms and an agreement. But when it comes to building rich relationships, you want people to feel like you're not just in there because you need something and want something.
Mhm.
Like we know the person that circles back, every 2 years only when they have a big favor to ask. And so it's about really building relationships for the sake of valuing the person and wanting to have that deeper connection. So in the book, I talk about the 3 different types of givers, because we are all givers, but there's
Mhm.
different kinds, right? So there's an indiscriminate giver, and that is the person who runs themselves ragged, when somebody needs help, when someone asks, the answer is always automatically yes. They feel like they're
Mhm.
a bad person if they're not constantly doing things to prove their worth. And sometimes they're the ones that are initiating, but then they end up feeling resentful because they've overgiven and their tank is depleted. Now, we've all had moments in our life where we have been that indiscriminate giver.
Mhm.
Then there's a transactional giver, and that's a person that's very much about tit for tat. It's short term thinking. Okay, I'm going to
Mhm.
do this because I need to get this in return. And we've all had moments where transactional thoughts or situations have like crossed, our path. But the issue with a transactional relationship is it blocks the flow of abundance in many ways.
Mhm.
Most people don't want to be a part of a transactional relationship. Also, I think that there can be so much that you can get out of a relationship that is rich and abundant and overflowing. And, you know, those transactional relationships are very much about, what can you do for me right now versus like the long term potential and the long game of the relationship. And then there is the rich giver. So we have indiscriminate giver, transactional giver, then we have the rich giver. So the rich giver is someone who gives from a place of what I call relaxed abundance. They
Mhm.
feel complete and they are someone that is naturally generous, but they're also someone that is very intentional. They
Oh.
understand that not all relationships are created equal. And so they're going to pour extra energy and tension into those rich relationships. They take care of themselves, they manage their energy, and therefore they can show up so generously with other people. And as a rich giver that operates from relaxed abundance, you're not thinking about what happens tomorrow. You're more like, I love having my rich network of friends and colleagues and supporters, and I pour generously into people. And I know and I trust that when I show up with a spirit of consistent generosity and kindness and love, good things are coming back to me. But it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be that I did this one thing for this one person, so this other thing has to happen in a particular timeline. They're coming from a place of relaxation, knowing that everything is going to work out in a beautiful way for everyone.
I'm so glad you brought those up. I had a question on that. I wanted to dive deeper into those three types. So thank you for sharing that. So when it comes to building these rich relationships and eventually maybe asking for a request, how do you know and gauge when the right time is for that without asking maybe too early?
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone has a different upbringing because there are some people that have very major blocks around asking. They
Mhm.
think that if they're asking, they are taking, they think that they need to save up their request until a moment, until they're truly desperate 5 years into the future. When
Mhm.
the reality is when you take someone in and you share your journey with them and you give them a chance to contribute to what you're working on, it can actually strengthen the relationship. They can feel more connected to you. And there's also this thing called the helper's high. And I'm sure that when I'm saying it, everyone's nodding and listening. Like, we all know how it feels really good to help, where just because we're helping, we don't need anything in return. Many times, the act of giving is a reward in and of itself.
Mm.
That being said, there are certain moments where, asking makes more sense than others. So asking makes more sense when you actually have a relationship. You're
Mhm.
not going to ask a stranger who doesn't know anything about you to support you with your biggest goals and dreams, right? There needs to be a relationship, and there also needs to be like some context. So I actually have a formula to share with people on how to ask. And it's not even in the book yet, because the funny thing is, like, you write a book and you like print it and it's out in the world. And when you start sharing your ideas and then you end up refining them and you're like, okay,
Ah.
well, save this for the podcast. So with the give
Ooh.
formula, yeah, yeah. And it was the same ideas, but it wasn't in this really cool acronym.
Mhm.
So G stands for gratitude.
Mm.
I stands for inspire. V stands for very specific, and E stands for easy out. So
Mm.
I'm just going to give an example of a way that I use the GIFT formula, and then people can, adapt this to their own purposes. So when it came to me launching my book, right, I knew that I was going to need to ask a lot of people to support me, because you don't have a best-selling book and sell multiple thousands of copies just by yourself.
Mhm.
So I would start with gratitude. So let's say I'm talking to my friend Diego. So I would say to Diego, starting with gratitude, I would say something like, hey, Diego, so I just, first of all, I want to thank you so much for just being such an amazing friend and supporter as I'm on this journey of writing my book. It really means the world to me. right? So with gratitude, you're acknowledging the relationship and you're showing appreciation for the way that they show up for you, right? So it's like, yeah, evaluating that connection. Then you move into inspire, right? So you've reminded them that they're an important person to you, then you inspire them. So the number way that we inspire someone is we share our vision. We share
Mhm.
our vision, our dreams, our goals. So then I would say, Diego, one of my big dreams is for rich relationships to land on the USA Today bestsellers list. I just know that, when it gets on these lists, it gives the book more authority, more people are going to pick it up. And I actually have a vision of eventually millions of people having the rich relationship books in my hands. And the first step is getting it on the USA Today bestsellers list.
Mhm.
So I shared my exciting vision. Then I get very specific. I say, here's the thing. The only way that I'm going to be able to hit the bestsellers list is if I sell at least 4,000 copies. So I basically have to sell $100,000 worth of books. And I can't do this by myself. I have to lean on, my rich relationships, my closest friends and colleagues and supporters, to achieve this exciting goal. And so I am curious if you would consider supporting me. And specifically, I would be so grateful if you would consider buying multiple copies of my book. I'm reaching out to my very closest friends to see if they'd be willing to buy 20 copies of my book.
Mhm.
And I also just want to acknowledge that you've been such an amazing friend and done so much that, whether it's one book or a couple books or just anything, I'm already feeling just so grateful for all that
Mhm.
you've poured into me. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the easy out. So it can either be easy out or just like low pressure language. And, that's just a very beautiful way for all of us. We start off by acknowledging and celebrating the relationship. We share our big, inspiring goals so they can see the bigger picture of why this is important. We're very clear on what we need help with, but then we also do it in a way that is low pressure.
Mm. Okay, the gift formula. I am sticking with that. I love that. And thank you for sharing an example of it because it was so vivid and easy to follow. And now it'll be so easy to remember when we are working on our rich relationships and linking them up with our vision and our dream. So I love that. So fun.
Yeah.
So where does building relationships on Instagram and networking on Instagram, where does this fit into rich relationships? And how can we maybe use some of these social platforms to pour into relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. Out of sight, out of mind. Even if you're not a social media lover, there is something really powerful being online because that's where everyone else is, right? And so, yes, one on one communication is important, and that has to be a key part of your rich relationship plan. But we also want to think about high leverage ways to reach a lot of
Mm,
people at once. And so, for example, when I see people show up regularly, I just think of them for opportunities.
yeah.
Oh, let me invite you to this party I'm hosting, or let me connect you to this person, or I was just on this podcast. This could be great for you. But if people are not seeing you, they're not going to be thinking of you.
Mhm.
And Joe Polish has a great book called What's
Mhm.
in It for Them. It's another fabulous book about networking. He talks about how many of the most successful people in the world are expressive, whether it is athletes, and they're showcasing their physical strength and their athletic prowess, or it is entertainers or performers or online personalities. They're sharing their life and they're sharing their gifts, and you're able to see that. And so that was really powerful for me to read because as an introvert, sometimes we don't always express ourselves and our gifts. And it's not to say you need
Mhm.
to do things that are uncomfortable for you, but you do need to be seen in order to be remembered and considered. So everyone could be different. For some people, maybe your expression is I love to cook epic meals and invite people over for a dinner party. Or for me, I'm really good at like hosting epic gatherings with the most amazing people. And I just have a photographer there. And then other people like post the picture, and other people at the parties post pictures as well. So photography has been a big part of my expression. I don't do like
Mhm.
spontaneous, like live video. And so on social media, there's many opportunities for you to express yourself. But the more people see of you, the more that they feel like they know you, the
Mhm.
safer they feel, the more connected. And so you have to figure out what feels right for you. I'm not saying to be on social media every day, but I do think for many of us, that's a great part of our rich relationship
Mhm.
strategy is to show up and to engage. I like the idea of engaging with people directly. I mean, you can, heart comments and leave little no or heart, posts and leave little comments, and that matters. But it just depends on what stage of the relationship it is. So if you're doing that with someone and you're like a circle 4 or 6, like they don't really know you, it's not going to register as much as if it's someone that, well, right? Whereas like one-on-one contact can be even more powerful where it's appropriate. Sometimes some of your biggest inspirations online, they may or may not have the bandwidth to have like
Mhm.
that one-on-one contact. But I know for myself, there was someone I connected with. She had me on her podcast, and she's such a badass and, incredible keynote speaker. And she was doing her own 3-day live event, and she had the most amazing outfits. And I just had to like congratulate her and just be like, wow, like, do you work with a stylist? Like, you're killing it with these outfits. And I was cheering her on. And then we had another call later about something. And she was like, I really love how you do rich relationships. And it just made me feel so special that you would take the time, that you're noticing what I'm up to, that you're celebrating me. Right. And so rich relationships don't have to take a lot of time. It's if you
Mhm.
feel something, express it. So a lot of times, Kylie, like there's people that we admire and we're like, oh my gosh, like there she is killing it on stage, or gosh, I love that conversation from, last week. She's such
Yeah.
a special person, or she's such a class act. That many times we feel things and we never express them, especially introverts, but extroverts and introverts alike. And so part of being more successful at rich relationships is both self-expression and expressing to others the ways
Mhm.
in which you appreciate and admire them.
Mm, I love that you shared that, and I resonate with it so much because I'm definitely in a season of relationship building. And I have when you were saying those things, I thought to myself, I have kind of had to break through that having a thought where I want to compliment somebody or I want to give them a shout out or something and DM them on Instagram, or if I have their email, maybe email them. And sometimes I'll kind of shy away from doing it, but I really had
Right.
to push myself, and it has led to some beautiful conversations that are kind of leading into these really fun relationships. Like, we live on the road full time, my husband, my daughter, and and I crossed paths with this woman who is off-roading. And so we were talking about all these places, and it started as we're both entrepreneurs, and now it's evolved into something so much more. And it was so unexpected. And I think it's so beautiful. So I love that.
And actually, something else, Kylie, I'm just thinking that would be really helpful for your listeners
Mm,
is, and it's related to what we talked about, it's very important to share our journey with other people.
mm,
And we might be thinking, oh, it's just a little thing. And like, I don't want to inconvenience someone. They probably have such a busy day. Or is it arrogant for me to send people updates? Do they even care
mm,
what's happening? But when you spend the time to update someone, they feel important. They're important enough for you to slow down and be in communication. So, for example, with my book, it was very exciting, and I engaged people in a lot of different ways, from, reaching out to individual friends and being like, hey, I'm debating between these 3 book covers. Which do you like
yeah.
the most? Or, I'm working on a manuscript right now, and I know it's so important for people to be captivated in the introduction. Would you be willing to read the first 10 pages of my book and tell me what you think? Or, I'm doing a behind the scenes virtual event to bring, you all together to share like my goals for the book and my dreams and ways that you can plug in and get involved if you feel inspired to. But I've created many opportunities for people to feel like they're a part of what I was creating. And so when I hit the USA Today bestsellers list, number 10 spot, and then I also hit number 3 on the LA Times, this was like, I couldn't even believe it. It was like, this is like the best, one of the best things that happened in my life. And so I screenshot both of those. And then I updated people in my network to fill them
Mhm.
in individually. And Kylie, I want you to guess, like, how many people do you think I pinged?
I don't know, 20?
Yeah, that same day. Yeah. So I pinged 70 people.
Okay.
70. That's how I have a rich network, is I spend the
Yeah.
time to stay in touch. But I also want your listeners to understand that doesn't take that much time. So literally you've got it at the front of your camera roll, right? Those 2 images. So it's upload, upload, and then just paste, right? You have an image that you're ready to paste. So like hit number 10 on USA Today and number 3 on LA Times. And then you write one personalized sentence. Thank you for pre-ordering a copy and helping me reach my dream. Thank you for having me on the podcast and
Mm.
promoting the book. Thank you for coming to my book launch party. Thank you for always cheering me on. I'm so grateful to have your story featured in the book, right? So it is personalized, but
Mhm.
the upload paste, like that's literally like, I don't know, like 15 seconds.
Mhm.
You write one sentence and you send it. I mean, all this can be done in under a minute.
Mm.
So reaching out to 70 people is like less than 90 minutes. I mean, it might have even been less than 1 hour, but I just kind of stayed focused and thought about, oh, I want to fill people in. And what happened is that there were people that, have been kind of quiet. In some cases, it felt like, are they ghosting me? It would be like, oh, by the way, the book did arrive and I'm going to post on Instagram stories. One of these people, his name's Jim Quick. He has like 1 million followers, right?
Yeah.
And then I shared this with Francis, my friend Francis, who's a circle 4 relationship, which means more of an acquaintance. We don't talk regularly, but he follows my Instagram stories. And so even though sometimes I'm like, nobody's looking at my Instagram stories today, there's only 26 people or whatever, but some people are. And Francis happens to be looking at my stories. And Francis, so he felt like he was following along with the book journey, even though I was at one-on-one reaching out to him all the time. And so I just shared the update with him. And then he said, Selena, do you think it would make a dent if I emailed my list of 600,000 people and told them about rich relationships? And I was like, are you for real? Like, oh my goodness. Like,
Oh.
I was like, I'm dying, Francis. Like, yes, please. Oh my gosh. Like, let me put together a swipe copy. Let me make it easy. Right. And so isn't it interesting so we did talk about the give formula, and that's one way to receive. But sometimes a part of giving is honestly just keeping people updated. These are my
Mhm.
dreams. This is my excitement. These are my celebrations. You're someone important. I want to fill you
Yeah.
in. And they initiate,
Yeah.
right? But you have to put yourself out there.
Mhm. It's just that human it's being human, right? Being human to another human. I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, Selena, this has been so beautiful. So talk to me a little bit about who this book is for and where my listeners can go get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, to be honest, this book is for everyone, because we're in relationship with people every single day. So if you can finesse and up level this one skill, your entire life is going to be better. That being said, in terms of the examples in the book and the core audience, I wrote it for entrepreneurial individuals in mind, people that are running a business, making an impact, people that work with clients and so forth. But that being said, this is also very beneficial for entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and
Okay.
truly anyone that wants to build $1 million network for their business and life. So the best place to get it is on Amazon. That would be amazing. And I guess I'm just going to put it out there. Like, if I can make an ask, if you feel so inspired, the way that you could transform my life and just make it even better would be to consider writing an Amazon review, even
Mm.
if it's just like one sentence. Like, I heard Selena on this podcast, bought the book, love it, excited to dig in, like whatever you want to say. Because Amazon is essentially the sales page for the book. And so my big dream is to get 1,000 Amazon reviews, which right now I'm at 87. So I've got a lot of work to do. But my vision and my goal is to continue to promote the book
Mhm.
nonstop for the next 4 years. And then eventually, it just kind of takes a life of its own. But my number one kind of focus area in promoting the book is to get more Amazon reviews. So if anybody feels inspired, it would mean the world if you wrote an Amazon review. And then if you want to screenshot it and send it to me, I'll come up with some special free gift that I'll give to you. And of course, my undying gratitude.
Oh, all right. Let's help Selena reach her vision of 1,000, 1,000 reviews. I'm going to go give one right after this. The book is so wonderful, so amazing. Selena, I know you have a free gift for my listeners. Would you like to share that?
Okay, so this is everyone's favorite. So when people read the book, one of the things they say is, I love the scripts that you use. Because to build rich relationships, we have to be in communication. But sometimes we don't know the right words to start a conversation, to
Mhm.
nurture a relationship. Maybe sometimes to say no without damaging the relationship, or how to make an ask. And so I have over 20 of my best scripts that I've used to generate millions in my business. And they're all throughout the book, but people have said to me, I would love to have all the scripts in one place. And so I put them all together. So you can go to richrelationshipsbook.com/scripts. So rich relationships plural book.com/scripts, and you'll get all the scripts in one place.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Okay, so I'm going to link all of this up in the show notes, on my website, in the newsletter. It's going to be all over for everyone to make it easy. But Selena, thank you for being here. This book is such a gift to everyone, but entrepreneurs as well. Thank you so much. And we are cheering you on. And just thanks for the really important work that you're doing in this world.
Thank you, Kylie.